And good morning and welcome to War Room Impeachment, episode 149. It is February 3rd, 2020. And Raheem, we might actually be to the week of acquittal.
Don't jinx it. Why would you do that?
I know. It's fingers crossed. We'll see. It could go on into infinity. I'm Jason Miller, former communications director and senior communications advisor for President Trump's 2016 campaign and transition, joined by Raheem Kassam, former media strategist for all things Brexit, and Nigel Farage. And we're joined on the line by Stephen K. Bannon, our illustrious founder. Steve, are you with us?
I'm with you guys. Thanks for jinxing us as the week starts there, Jason.
Hey, guys, my real boss is in town this week.
Yeah, no. We've got the next couple. We're going to have Mark Meadows calling in from Iowa with a live report. He's out there for the president to check on how things are going on the ground in Iowa. Steve Moore, the great economist who is up for a slot on the Federal Reserve, is going to talk to us in the hour of pandemic. He's going to talk to us about the Chinese economy, how it's going to hit the American economy. And, of course, tomorrow, Raheem, we've got the celebration lunch for Nigel Farage and all the Brexit people in town. So it's a big week for us.
The real Brexit lunch, the real Brexit celebration starts tomorrow. But there were some celebrations last night. I don't watch, obviously, the sporting events as you guys do. But Steve, you were down there. You were on with Maria Bartiromo, and your interview seems to have created some attention, some hype around it. Want to go to?
Well, I wanted to have a reasoned conversation about important topics, but you guys got me fired up in advance. And of course, Lindsey Graham went on first, and I have tremendous respect for Senator Graham. He's very close, obviously, to President Trump. But, Jason, I think as you opined yesterday, he's got to start listening better when he's playing golf, right? When they're having the rounds of golf, he ought to be like taking notes on the back of his scorecard.
Yeah, and to put things in perspective, because I want to make sure people are getting the full picture here, Senator Lindsey Graham led off Maria Bartiromo's show yesterday, Sunday Morning Futures, #1 show on cable, and their time slot. They get well over 2 million folks watching every single week. Lindsey started off, and Maria, to her credit, started grilling him pretty strongly on what's going on with Adam Schiff, what's going on with the whistleblower. I thought we were going to have all of these hearings because we've been getting all this happy talk for months. Oh, don't worry, we're going to bring them in. We're going to have a hearing.
But I want to ask you guys, but Jason, Raheem, didn't he actually promise on national TV several times, the president and the nation, that a lot of this is going to be handled in the Judiciary Committee? You didn't need to call Schiff. I mean, you didn't need to call these guys as witnesses, even when they were thinking of bringing in Bolton and other people, because he was going to handle all of that at the Judiciary Committee.
Absolutely. And look, Republicans on Capitol Hill move the goalposts just as much as Democrats do. But this was don't worry about Adam Schiff, don't worry about witnesses. We're going to get this all taken care of. But there were some other things, Steve, that were said there that I think got us particularly fired up. One was bringing up John Kerry's chief of staff. We're going to get to the bottom of this. We're going to bring in John Kerry's chief of staff. Senator Graham also said, I'll take care of the FISA investigations, but don't worry, Jim Risch over on Foreign Affairs or Richard Burr over on Intel, they're going to do some other hearings down the road. That's not good enough.
No, this thing it was so confusing. He was asking if Senator Risch, I think from Idaho, was he listening, and they were going to call John Kerry's chief of staff. I mean, what is even this nonsense? It sounds like it's not even happy talk anymore. It's gobbledygook. What was he even talking about? I think he's going to punt to the Senate Foreign Affairs Committee and have John Kerry's chief of staff back from his Senate days or when he was. It was totally confusing. I had no earthly idea what he's talking about, but you could tell he's just trying to obfuscate.
Yeah, exactly. And that's Steve, basically this morning someone tweeted out Miguelifornia, who's apparently a gentleman looks like Michael Beatty, but he wrote Bannon on fire with 12 fire emojis, and it has a clip from the show. Raheem, want to go and play that so folks know what Steve replied with?
Wow, give me a better tee up there. Wow.
Lindsey Graham, and I have tremendous respect for him, he guaranteed at the Senate Judiciary Committee, we need to have the whistleblower. We need to have the #2 whistleblower. We need to have Adam Schiff as a fact witness. We need Hunter and Joe Biden. I think we need Brennan. We need all of them. And here's the other thing we ought to do. President Trump ought to declassify all these reports. He ought to go back to Rosenstein's, the 40 subpoenas at the House under Devin Nunes forwarded to Rosenstein. He ought to get all of those. He ought to get all of those subpoenas, and all those people ought to be called to witness. We need an apparatus that's official to go about this to protect the office of the presidency.
Well, this is why I've been so adamant about this for 3 years. It wasn't about President Trump. It was about fairness. It was about being a patriot. Having the top leadership of the FBI and the CIA put their finger on the scale and try to take down candidate Trump and then President Trump. That's why my audience wants accountability.
This happened in the 50s and 60s. This is why we had the Church Commission that looked into activities of the FBI and the CIA during the 50s and 60s. This is why you had this whole new structure come up. This needs to be put on trial. It needs to be put on trial for the American people. President Trump is right. It is the crime of the century, and we can't cover it up. And we don't need to go to the House Foreign. It's not a foreign affairs issue. It should be Senate Judiciary, and we got to get Senate Judiciary. Here's the reason: Nancy Pelosi and these people are not going to stop. The formal acquittal vote on Wednesday is just the curtain coming down on one act. They're going to continue on. They're going to try to subpoena John Bolton in the House. They want to get his notes. And my point is,
so I don't think this is going to end anytime soon.
It's not going to end. Listen, this ties back to what's happening in Iowa. There's no heat on any of those. There's no personalities out there that can beat the president. The policies are so radical, so they can't run on personalities. They don't have the policies. They must destroy Trump. Nancy Pelosi from day one understands to get back the White House, they must destroy Trump. And the way they're going to use it is use these fake hearings. This is not going to stop. They're going to subpoena more people. They're going to leak more information. And this is why I don't mind getting John Bolton as a witness. Let's cross-examine him. Let's get his notes and cross-examine him about that. Let's get, I don't mind Mick Mulvaney or the OMB people, all the emails. Let's get it up there and full.
That's the full clip as it appears on President Trump's Twitter feed.
Steve, you literally became a human fire emoji. I loved it. It was Steve Bannon turned down for what? But you know what? What Steve said there, that's what all of us in Trump world are thinking. We're all wondering, is this impeachment nonsense going to come to an end and literally there's going to be no accountability to anything?
Look, we're going to have Mark Meadows, as soon as he frees up in Iowa, a call. He and Jim Jordan have been working on this with Devin Nunes for years. This goes back years. This goes back before 2018 when we had the House Intelligence Committee. They put out 40 subpoenas to Rosenstein to effectuate. They had all this information they needed about this this coup against the president. And you need an official venue to do this. You don't need to do it on Fox or War Room Impeachment and little snippets where you get a guest on for one segment. Here's the power, and I want to go back and you guys please opine, but to me one of the most powerful things is when the president actually had an organized, coherent defense. It took the air of the balloon at MSNBC and CNN because they could see once the president had lawyers that could actually lay out the logical, what this trial was about and get the facts out there, not the hearsay. It all went away. The Republicans unified. There weren't going to be any more witnesses because they just want to get on with it. That's what we need to do here, and we can't do it on War Room Impeachment. You can't do it on Fox. You can't do it with the president going to Marine One and stopping by the microphones. That's all fine. It's good. But what you need is an official venue. The person that has that venue is Lindsey Graham. And here's what's more important. He's promised he was going to do that. He committed to do that so that we didn't have to do it during the impeachment hearings. The Democrats are not going to stop. Their impeachment program will continue on. In fact, we've got the president now. He's going to give his State of the Union. They get a rebuttal. They get to rebut the State of the Union in the impeachment process. This is crazy.
Yeah, all day Wednesday is a rebuttal.
Let me play Graham's advocate for a moment and just he went up there and it's a lot of obfuscation. It's a lot of working around the actual crux of this thing. But I think what maybe he was trying to get to, and I'm just trying to help Lindsey Graham along at this point, was that the State Department under John Kerry was well aware of this conflict of interest, this Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Ukraine conflict of interest. Is Lindsey Graham trying to get to the beginning of the process in terms of that original complaint that went into John Kerry's chief of staff?
We ought to play that, but that's just one small.
I'm just trying to give context for Lindsey Graham.
Yeah. Let's play it.
No, I'm just trying to give the context for Lindsey Graham. That's all.
I understand that, and I agree. In this one narrow-casted element, like he talked about FISA, yes, those are important pieces, and we should look at John Kerry's State Department at that time. But that's something that's a classic Washington let's look over there. Nothing really comes of it. You never really call any witnesses. You talk about it, and it goes away. We got to get to the thing itself.
Well,
The thing
yeah,
itself
and
is what
Steve,
Trump
we
is
just
talking
have
about. The crime of the century. It's the crime of the century. And Trump, here's what Trump's been a historic figure. He says, this is not about me. This can never happen to another president of the United States.
Right. Steve, we have to go to a quick break now here on War Room Impeachment. We'll be back with Steve Bannon, Congressman Mark Meadows, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam here on War Room Impeachment. Don't go anywhere. www.warroom.org is the URL. We'll be right back.
War Room Impeachment. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
And we are back with War Room Impeachment, episode 149. It's February 3rd, 2020. Here with Raheem Kassam, and we have on the line Congressman Mark Meadows from North Carolina. Congressman?
It's great to be with you, Jason, you and Raheem and Mr. Bannon, and thanks for staying in the fight.
Excellent. So, Congressman, you're in Iowa. Tell us what's going on. You're not already laying the groundwork for 2024, are you?
No groundwork being laid, but actually Jim Jordan and I are here along with about 80 different surrogates here in Iowa. We're wanting to make sure that Bernie doesn't get a free pass and that Iowa knows that President Donald Trump is not taking Iowa for granted. So we're actually doing the caucuses today. We've done a little bit of TV and radio, but the feeling on the ground here in Iowa is a good feeling. You know, when you talk to the Uber drivers, when you talk to the people that are at the restaurant, I said, "Well, is Bernie going to win?" They said, "Well, we like it just the way it is under President Donald J. Trump."
So critical work, Congressman, and thank you so much for going out to Iowa. Obviously, a lot of other things you could be doing with your spare time here. This is very important stuff. But take us actually into the mood of the Democratic primary voter right now, or the Democratic caucus goer, and what's going on with this poll that was tanked over the weekend. That's usually, this is kind of the big reveal about who's going to win the Iowa caucus. But did they not like the results, or what happened there?
Well, I mean, a number of us said that perhaps they didn't like the fact that Bernie was coming out so far on top. Their official line is one of the potential presidential candidates' names was left off the survey, and so it was might taint the results. But you and I both know that the big names were certainly all on there, and I can tell you that Bernie, it appears Bernie is surging, and yet there's a last-minute effort to try to get Joe Biden to come in first. I passed a big Warren, Elizabeth Warren bus this morning in downtown Des Moines, and but the energy seems to be more about Bernie and his, socialist ideas. If there's a groundswell of support, that's what it would be right here in Iowa.
Congressman, Joe Biden seems to be at least struggling in the financial sense. Not a lot of cash on hand in that campaign. Not a story that's talked about an awful lot. But of course, you've got John Kerry tweeting out some expletives this weekend, and all sorts of crazy stuff going around with that. In your estimation, is Joe Biden weaker than the media would have people believe? And do you think this impeachment process, having Joe and Hunter Biden mentioned up there about 30,000 times as a result of all of this, has actually been shooting themselves in the foot here?
Well, I do think that the impeachment has backfired on my Democrat colleagues because what they meant to do is harm Donald Trump, and yet his approval ratings are at record highs for him, and yet we're seeing Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, really be the definition of what the swamp is all about. You know, if your son gets a job not based on their resume but based on their DNA, then you've got a real problem with that, and I think that's having a bad effect. To answer the first part of your question is he weaker? The answer is yes, and the next 2 weeks will really define whether Joe Biden is going to be a credible candidate or not. If he limps into South Carolina and barely wins South Carolina, he should win South Carolina by double digits. But if he does not, then what you're going to find is everybody's going to be looking for a Bloomberg or a Klobuchar or somebody on the moderate side to take on Bernie Sanders as the heir apparent for the progressives.
And to that point, Congressman, new polling out shows Bernie Sanders only trailing Joe Biden by a few points in South Carolina. So even there, it's becoming much tighter. Congressman, I want to take you to yesterday. Steve Bannon was on Maria Bartiromo along with Senator Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham went first, and he talked about, he was grilled pretty strongly by Maria about what are we going to do to get to the bottom of this entire impeachment witch hunt? How are we going to get to the whistleblower and Shifty Adam Schiff? And essentially, Senator Graham said, I have the FISA part taken care of, but Jim Risch, chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, but then also Richard Burr, chairman of the Senate Intel Committee, they're both going to go do some follow-up investigations. Steve followed pretty strongly and said, we need to have judiciary immediately call for the whistleblower number 2, Adam Schiff, Joe Biden, Hunter Biden. Let's get Brennan up there. Let's get Rod Rosenstein, release the documents. Steve basically laid out the entire case. From your perspective, Congressman, as someone who's been following this closer than anybody now, what should the Senate do immediately to get to the bottom of this, knowing that we're not going to get witnesses in the impeachment trial?
Well, the only way that this stops, and I'm even reluctant to say that it will ever stop with the crazy Democrats continuing to do investigation after investigation. But the only way it stops is to do what Steve Bannon said on Sunday with Maria, is you've got to get to the bottom of it now. If they think that each time that they can do an impeachment article and they can hide behind the mystique of a confidential whistleblower and unnamed sources, then they're going to continue to do it. And I can tell you that not only do we need to get Rod Rosenstein in and Mr. Brennan in, but we need to bring in Clapper, we need to bring in Comey. And if they send it to those committees, you and I both know that nothing will happen. An election will come and go in November of this year, and they'll still be studying it. You know, the only thing close to eternal life in Congress is a congressional study. And so it's we've got to make sure that we get to the bottom of it. And Lindsey has the jurisdiction that where he can do that. And so your listeners need to make sure that they encourage Lindsey as Mr. Bannon did on Sunday.
And to that point, President Trump actually retweeted someone with that clip of Steve Bannon from yesterday on the Maria Bartiromo show. So I think people are going to start paying a lot of attention. I think to your point, Congressman, timing is of the essence here. It's critical that we get moving on this right away, because if we say we're going to come back in the weeks down the road, that's just more Washington moving the goalpost.
Well, it is. And listen, you all, the three of you know what happened. They say, well, we're going to look into it. We're still waiting on part of the Russia conspiracy investigation from Richard Burr. I mean, and that's been 3 years now. So it's just beyond the pale when you look at the way that so many of my Senate colleagues say they want to get to the bottom of it. But really what they want to do is get beyond it so they don't have to deal with it. But if they don't deal with it now, they will be dealing with something else tomorrow, and something far greater of a problem of the deep state believing that they can win when indeed it's time that we start fighting back.
Congressman, I'm old enough to remember when Iowa was a true swing state. Bush won it once, he lost it once. President Trump won it pretty convincingly last go around. We just have a minute here before we have to go to the commercial. But tell us about the energy enthusiasm you're seeing for the president out there in Iowa right now, and what technologies we're putting into place to help deliver it.
Listen, we're identifying crossover Democrat votes across the state of Iowa. The passion is so unbelievably strong for the president. He's going to win this state, not just because the polls say so, but because waiters, Uber drivers, guys that are working construction, because they say so, is why this president will put it in column.
Well, Congressman, thank you so much for joining us, and make sure to grab your gloves and your boots, because I'm sure it's not super warm out there in Iowa. We appreciate it. We are here, War Room Impeachment, episode 149, warroom.org, where you can find all of the news. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast, Apple, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and we'll be right back.
War Room Impeachment. with Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller, and Raheem Kassam. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
And we are back, episode 149 of War Room Impeachment. I am Jason Miller, joined with Raheem Kassam here. Steve K. Bannon was on earlier in the show, and he will be back for War Room Pandemic at the top of the hour. Raheem, want to go back to what Mark Meadows was talking about with Iowa and the whole dynamics tonight with the caucuses, and had the opportunity to do this 4 years ago on the Republican side and go through it. And this is really unique. If you haven't gone through it, it's different than Election Day. A typical Election Day for most folks around the country, polls open 7 in the morning, 8 in the morning, go until 7 or 8 p.m. You go in, you cast your ballot, and then you head home. Or in some states now, you have a lot of vote by mail where people get it upwards of 3-4 weeks in advance, whether they're absentee, or some states are all vote by mail now. With caucuses, and this is really the first primary contest of the season, you show up to essentially your local precinct, and you go in there, and when they say caucus, because you get together, it's literally one corner of the room. Here's where all the Bernie bros go. This corner of the room, here's where the one Biden person will go. This corner of the room is where Mayor Pete, and people go and they organize and they get together, and then they tally it up and see where they are. But if you're not at 15%, in there, then your candidate drops. And then people are free agents. Now, sometimes campaigns will get a little bit cute or strategize on this. Maybe sometimes it's a candidate who wants to be someone's VP, or it's a candidate who wants to be, like Amy Klobuchar, I'm sure would be a great Secretary of Education, or HHS, or I'm sure she might be angling for something. They all decide where they want to go next. That's where the real intense battle starts. That is where the organizational skills really matter. And so that's where you're going to see some of the hand-to-hand combat. So if it was just a regular primary contest, Bernie Sanders should walk out with a win tonight. But if you have a Klobuchar drop, if you have a Buttigieg drop, although I think Mayor Pete will get above 15%, I think, just from what we're seeing.
Not if the Des Moines Register has anything to say about it.
Yeah. So let's go to that poll for a minute. So,
well, let me just jump in real quick here on the points you just made, because this is something that I didn't understand yesterday, and Bill McGinley came in yesterday for the show and explained this to me over the course of an hour, and I feel like an expert as a result of it. And we got a lot of compliments on yesterday's show, so thanks to Bill McGinley and all of those of you who have tweeted and mailed in support for that episode, because it was really a masterclass. And he's done this. He's an old hand at conventions and all of this stuff. He understands.
He was our head delegate wrangler back in the 2016 campaign. So he truly knows his stuff, and especially the voting integrity and all those issues.
I'm trying to get him to divulge a few inside stories from that. So maybe stick around for more War Room Impeachment next time we have Bill McGinley on. Maybe we'll hear some of the inside gossip on how that all went down on the floor at the RNC. But he knows his stuff in this area, and he explained it to me as you just did, and we went into some detail on it. The interesting part to me is this is effectively a transferable vote, is what we're saying. It's a very European way of doing things, actually. All across the continent, they have elections where you pick your first choice. If your first choice doesn't make the mark, you get your second choice counted. And what will be interesting to see is the infographics that come out as a result of this. Like you say, Klobuchar's 7% of Klobuchar's vote went to this person, and 15% of her vote went to this person, and it will really give you an idea as to where the base stands, where the Democrat base stands, and the activists stand on where they want their votes to go. Because, like you said, while there may be some strategizing around this stuff, a lot of people will go with their gut as well. Will go with their instinct. Will go with their heart.
And it matters also where your neighbors and your friends are, because if you see your friends, literally your neighbors next door, like, you know what, Mayor Pete got knocked out or Amy got knocked out, I'm going to go with the Bernie guys. Another person might be, well, boy, I'm more of a Biden person, but since I see my neighbor, maybe they have a good read on this.
But you think this works against Bernie?
I think so.
It's interesting.
I think so. Now, the big key there is if for some reason things were to fall out for Elizabeth Warren, because I think the Elizabeth Warren people, a lot of them would go to Bernie. But I do think that there's those candidates who are taking the more centrist position might gravitate toward another centrist. And also keep in mind, there's still a lot of lingering feelings from the Bernie versus Hillary contest from 4 years ago, as we see Hillary Clinton popping off and saying negative things about Bernie. And everyone in the Democratic establishment is trying to steal this nomination from Bernie.
Well, the reason I think it might go the other way, i.e. it might work in Bernie's favor, is because my experience with these sort of transferable vote or second preference vote systems is that people will use their second chance and their second preference and their second vote to express support for a non-establishment candidate, to say, hey, I went with what you guys and what the establishment wanted me to do as number one. They didn't quite make the mark. I went with a more acceptable face of the Democrat Party, the first choice. It didn't work, and so now I'm going to go with something that was, a little bit out there. Try a little bit something different. That's how the experience I've had in these situations work.
And the other part too is people want to be with a winner. People don't want to throw their vote away. And so if their candidate is knocked out, there's also a chance that they go and say, I want to be at first place. All right, got to go to a commercial break. We'll be back in just a moment. War Room Impeachment. We'll be right back.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room Impeachment.
On the John Fredericks Radio Network.
And we are back with episode 149, War Room Impeachment. Jason Miller, along with Raheem Kassam, and had Mark Meadows on earlier in the program. If you dialed in late and you missed it, definitely want to download the podcast, whether it be on Apple or Google Play or Stitcher or Spotify. We are here on the John Fredericks Radio Network, Newsmax TV, AmericasVoice.news, all of the platforms. Raheem, many people say we're on all the platforms.
Many people are saying it.
So I want to pick up where we left off a moment ago talking about Iowa. So I've only had the chance to really participate in Iowa once. That was 4 years ago. And the thing I can tell you about being out there in the whole caucus process, everybody is piled in. Everyone in the political world is piled into this one state all at one time. And so you bump into people. You'll find yourself at a coffee shop with all your competitors. The major hotels in Des Moines, right in the center there of Iowa, you have everybody. And so yesterday, Jonathan Allen from NBC News, firsthand account, said that he overheard John Kerry having a cell phone conversation, right? We know about how you can hear everything from cell phone conversations, going back to our impeachment drama, or maybe not, said that he heard essentially Kerry saying that if Bernie is on his way to the nomination and someone's not emerging, that he would step up and he would run. This is great. Like, this is just, this is popcorn. This isn't one tub of popcorn. This is 2 tubs of popcorn with the salt, with the butter, pile it on and just sit back and watch. So John Kerry got a little bit of a bee in his bonnet, and he tweeted out that no, and I'm not even sure what I can say because we're on TV and on radio, but no blanking. Let's just say this.
No, hold on. We've got to read the whole tweet out.
Okay,
yeah, I'll do the blank.
Okay.
As I told the reporter, I am absolutely not running for president. Any report otherwise is blanking false. Bracket or categorically. I've been proud to campaign with my good friend Joe Biden, who is going to win the nomination, beat Trump, and make an outstanding president. What happened next?
Yeah, so he deleted that and then retweeted, but without the blanking part that would get us fined here on Newsmax and the John Fredericks Radio Network. I think we could do it on AmericasVoice.news, though. I don't think. In
do
the
whatever
podcast.
we blanking want.
Yes, that's very true. But here's the thing. Let's just go and unpack this for a moment. First of all, John Kerry, who didn't win, so he's there pushing electability from a guy who lost, the windsurfer-in-chief himself, John Kerry. He's obviously getting phone calls saying that Joe Biden's going to lose, that Joe Biden's a dud. Mm-hmm. Would you consider running? Now, of course, when John Kerry looks in the mirror, he sees a president or someone who should be president. That's not a great blanket denial. Obviously, what he's mad about, the reason why he dropped that, the whatever bomb, is because he got caught. That's what he's truly upset about. There is a lot of concern right now in the Democratic Party that Joe Biden, who's going to be the candidate to take them to the promised land, the one that was going to put Pennsylvania and Ohio and all these other states in play, he's not going to win in Iowa. And I want to take things back to 8 years ago, and this is the importance of Iowa. It's all about the media bounce you get coming out. And a lot of times that we've seen, even going back to 8 years ago, where Santorum really was the one who won Iowa, but it went back and forth between Santorum and Romney that entire night. And the guy on CNN with the maps, the guy who doesn't have his own show, it's John King. He does have his show, but President Trump likes to tweak him. He's pointing out counties that most people have never heard of and don't know and say this is higher or lower, these different things. Iowa is all about the media bump. And so this is the key. And so if you're a Joe Biden and you're someone who you're the presumed national front runner, you have to be in the top 2. And even number 2 might show that he has some real problems with his campaign.
What do we? I mean, that the Des Moines Register poll and the Des Moines Register CNN poll that got pulled. The complaint was from the Buttigieg camp, I believe, that they weren't mentioned in one singular interview that was done by one of their surveyors. Has that ever happened in your experience? Do you ever recalling a polling company going, "Oh, there was a complaint from a campaign about a singular interaction, and therefore we're pulling this whole poll"? And also, did they not have time to put out another, even though it may have been fewer people, something like that? Didn't they have time to put out another poll on this? Could they not have tweaked the methodology to take that into account? It just seems strange to me, absurd even, that you would pull the whole thing and say, okay, you're not getting any information ahead of this. It will sound to a lot of people, and I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, I'm not going to advance the theory that this is the case, but it will seem to a lot of people like this was establishment gerrymandering of this process.
Well, absolutely, and there were a couple of things. So this poll, Ann Seltzer, who's the woman who runs the Des Moines Register poll, and by the way, it's a Des Moines Register CNN poll, but everyone's just saying the Des Moines Register poll. This is always kind of the storied poll that comes out just before the election, and this pollster does it a number of different ways. You have the calls to landlines, which are typically older voters. You have calls to cell phones, which they do with a certain percentage. There's also an online component that they do. And so there's all these aspects of the methodology. And this is where things get a little bit bumpy when it comes to polling in general, because our people call on the right. That's how President Trump was able to surge ahead and win, because guess what? The voters were there, just pollsters weren't calling them. So they also said that in some of these, Mayor Pete, his name was in a smaller font or on the next page of the survey. Because here's the deal. If you're getting a phone call, whether it be on a cell phone or whether it be on a landline, you're reading off of a script.
Yes.
I mean, these are loaded up to the computer. If you are, say your name is, Mike, and you're one of the callers, you don't have the ability to go in and change the survey. Like, it's loaded up, it's computer, it's a script, high command, hits the button, pops up, and it's all, by the way, it's all on a computer. Mm-hmm. It's all coming up on your screen in these call centers.
It's all like prompts as well, as you have to confirm that you've done each step, right?
Right.
If you're a surveyor.
Yeah, and so it seems weird to me. Again, it was only one report this happened, although I do have to give the Mayor Pete people credit on this for going in and saying, hey, there's a big, massive problem. They basically spiked this entire poll. This is a pretty big deal. I don't think there would have been time for them to go in and do it because they want to do as close to caucus night as possible to have the most recent results. And usually that Des Moines Register poll usually has a little bit of a longer run time on it because they want to get kind of the overall sense.
So you're saying no, they couldn't have. They
couldn't have done it. But this is a massive, massive black eye for Des Moines Register. Remember, CNN had to dump their pollster after the 2016 presidential race.
Yeah, it's not you, it's me. The thing about John Kerry that you said, and the idea of him jumping in, and the harsh reality that faces the Democrat Party in a Bernie Sanders era, I've seen before. I've seen with Jeremy Corbyn. When Jeremy Corbyn was running for the leader of the Labour Party in the United Kingdom a couple of years ago, and they said, oh, he's never going to make it, he's too extreme, he'll never become leader, and people like David Miliband, who were very much I think David Miliband at one point was John Kerry's opposite number in the United Kingdom's Foreign Secretary, he was begged to join the race and never did, and so Corbyn, Britain's Bernie, got the nomination and, of course, led the Labour Party to electoral oblivion. I guess we should come back and discuss that more after this break, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. Want to pick up with that? We are here, War Room Impeachment. We'll be right back.
Bannon, Miller, Kassam. War Room Impeachment.
On the John Fredericks Radio Network.
We are back, War Room Impeachment, episode 149. Raheem, to the impeachment side of impeachment things, I want to make sure we set the table for today, but finish up your thought about what you're saying, the UK Bernie parallels.
Well, it's exactly the same. And for people paying very close attention over the last couple of years, our countries have moved in sort of lockstep politically with the nullification projects of Brexit and the Trump election of 2016. You then saw this hard left shift from the Labour Party in the United Kingdom. You've been seeing it here with the AOCs and all of that. We have slightly different political systems. So your left populist movement, it really came through in the midterms. Our left populist movement came through as a result of these endless elections and general elections and everything else that's been taking place since the Brexit vote. And one of the things that really struck me, and I didn't plan any of this, when you were talking about John Kerry potentially stepping in, I was thinking, oh my goodness, that's David Miliband. When the Labour Party was begging David Miliband, the brother of Ed, who was the former Labour leader who also lost in an election, he was deemed by the electorate as too far left. They then wanted David Miliband, who was much more of a Tony Blair centrist, to come in and save the party. But Jeremy Corbyn actually blew everyone out, flooded the zone, flooded the party with new members, part of this group called Momentum, really the Antifa, the institutionalized Antifa of the United Kingdom. And Jeremy Corbyn won and set about turning the Labour Party into this really far left, pro-Hezbollah, pro-Hamas, nationalize everything, and lost big, as people will recall, in December to Boris Johnson, who can hardly be called a conservative firebrand, who can hardly be called a sort of MAGA equivalent. And I think that's what you're seeing here. I mean, John Kerry is your David Miliband, Bernie Sanders is your Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, you can see why so many Trump allies want to see Bernie Sanders be the nominee. I mean, if Bernie Sanders is the nominee, Trump could put up some really, really huge numbers, which would be great. So I love it. And the fact that they're trying to steal the election from him and already talking about how they changed delegate rules and who might emerge or who might jump in. Secretary Clinton, crooked. You know, she's just, you see that media tour that she's on? And I know a lot of folks in the media like try to troll me on this and like, oh, you're just like to throw out Hillary to get, watchers of the show all fired up. She's not out there on this tour. She's not out there beating up Bernie Sanders just because she's bitter from 4 years ago. It's because she wants there to be an opening so she can ride in and save the day. So on the impeachment part of impeachment, today they come back in at 11 o'clock. We're going to see 4 hours of closing arguments, 2 hours on each side. What's the key you're going to be looking for today from the Trump folks?
Oh, goodness. I just want this to be over. I'm looking for the wrap as quickly as possible at this point. I mean, yes, I like the aggression that we saw from people like Pam Bondi and what was the other chap's name? Hirschman?
Yep.
The lawyer. I loved all that. I would re-up all of the Biden stuff, especially with Iowa on the table tonight. It's going to be very interesting to watch all that take place. But really, all eyes on State of the Union there, and bloody hell, I can't believe we're almost there. The acquittal on Wednesday.
Yes, that's where we're coming to. We'll see a whole bunch of senator speeches between now and then. Tuesday night, we have State of the Union. We're going to be here around the clock covering everything. We're going to be back. Actually, have an episode of War Room Pandemic starting at 10 o'clock here. We'll be back.
Don't go anywhere. We've got War Room Pandemic coming up right now. Stephen Moore, Stephen K. Bannon, Jason Miller, Raheem Kassam. We've got the whole crew. More War Room Pandemic in a minute.
It's good. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast. We'll see you later.